I'm so excited that you took the time to join us on the next episode of Beyond the Culture. This is the show where we embrace change and challenge cultural norms and ideals. I'm your host, Dr. David Walker. I'm so excited about my guest today. His name is Brian Olds, and I am very, very excited about him being with us today. Brian is the president and the founder of Black Speakers Network, and the mission of the organization is to equip, connect, and inspire the next generation of Black professional speakers. So I'm so excited to have Brian on the show today. Welcome, Brian. Welcome to the show.
Dr. Walker, I salute you. I am super excited to be here, and hello to everyone that is listening. This is going to be awesome. I'm ready to dive in. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening, right now in the world, in the speaking business, and it's juxtaposed to, some of the crazier things that are happening. But either way, I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, Brian, and we are excited to have you on and to hear from you today, because as you said, there's a lot going on in the world today. And we're here to talk about, being a public speaker and just trying to share some information for my audience. So I want to start off by, I was on your bio the other day and I saw these words and I want to ask you about it because it said that in your younger days, you were a tall, skinny, lanky, peculiar kid from Baltimore who was best suited for staying out of the way. And so I want to start off by you telling us, give us your backstory. Tell us about that kid that from Baltimore, you grew up in Baltimore. Tell us about being raised there and just give us your backstory.
Yeah, that was totally my objective, was to keep a low profile. And I'm still a tall guy and still in Baltimore actually as we record this. But yeah, man, if you had been around me actually this morning, I don't know if you caught it, we had a NASA space shuttle launch from Cape Canaveral.
Well, that's my area, Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so you're right. Your windows were probably shaking.
Exactly.
So I was the kid in Baltimore, man, growing up, watching those NASA space shuttle launches, and they really inspired me. And so my goal in life was to be an aerospace engineer. And true to form with most engineers, I already had one qualification that you find, and that's being an introvert.
Okay.
We're actually trying to get some of these cards printed up that says card carrying introvert. And that was me. Like, I couldn't lead two people in silent prayer. Like, I kept a low profile. Like, my entire goal was I was just a quiet kid. My mom is, she pretty much raised me by herself. And I have an older brother. We have a 13-year age difference. And so I wasn't an only child, but I felt like it at times from that perspective. Mm-hmm. And yeah, man, I just kind of, started to gravitate toward science, technology, engineering, and math. I remember being in a robotics competition. I remember just going in my room and creating like a lab and, taking things apart. Never put them back together, but I was able to take them apart, figure out what was in them. And so I started on this journey, and eventually I ended up at Morgan State University. Morgan State is here in Baltimore, HBCU.
All right.
That's you, HBCU in the building. What's going on? Morgan is credited with producing some of the most, or I believe it's the highest number of Black engineers of any HBCU in the country. Okay. And so I was very proud to have been accepted to the engineering program. The problem is, Dr. Walker, we were talking about education before. I don't know throughout all your classes if you've had to take a little class called Calculus 2, like differential equations, anything like that. That is, once I got to that class, and math had been something I had consistently kind of struggled with, I was like, okay, let me just go see what the School of Business is talking about, because not sure how this is going to work out. And went to the School of Business, never came back to engineering, but I was lost, Dr. Walker, because I'm sure there are many people that are listening now who have either experienced this or are probably in this right now. You spend so much time and energy focusing on one path, and you think like, wow, this is what I'm supposed to do. And then something happens and you find yourself away from that path and you don't know where to go. It's kind of like you're driving down the road during the day. It's the difference between driving down the road during the day and knowing exactly where you're going to all of a sudden being on a dark, single path country road with no lights. You're
Uh-huh.
still driving, but you're going to
Uh-huh.
slow way down. And so that was me. And then in college, actually stumbled upon Toastmasters.
Okay.
Yeah, Toastmasters. And Dr. Walt, you're probably familiar with Toastmasters, right?
Yes, yes, I am familiar, and actually, that was going to be my next question because I did hear that you started your career with Toastmasters. So tell us about how you got involved and what was it like, starting that career with that particular organization.
Yeah, so we chartered us. We chartered a club at Morgan State University, and I was one of the very first speakers at our very first meeting. So if you've been sitting next to me in a small classroom in the summer of 2006, you would have watched as I stood up, nervously made my way to the front of the room, and prepared to deliver my very first speech in Toastmasters. Now, Dr. Walker, I know you're a lifelong learner, so I'm gonna put you on the front row in this
Uh-huh.
scene. So if you've been sitting in the front row, like looking at me and I'm looking back at
Uh-huh.
you would have noticed a couple things. You would have noticed my sweaty palms, probably dripping, at this
Uh-huh.
point as
Uh-huh.
I'm getting ready to my speech. I had these note cards, so the note cards are trembling. So you would have heard the sound of the note cards. You would have seen me as I began my speech just to get rid of some of that nervous energy. Some of us pace back and forth. I actually paced so much that somebody left the room door open where we were having a meeting. I almost walked out of the room. I have a good Nigerian friend. His name is Deepo at a
Mhm.
scene, and he's in the back like, Brian, where are you going? Come back. Like, why are you like leaving? So all these physical things are happening. Inside is what folks could not see, because while this happened on the outside, anytime that you're nervous or delivering a presentation, they always say you have butterflies flying around in
Mhm.
your stomach. But, Dr. Walker, mine weren't just the casual, like Discovery Channel, Monarch butterflies. Mine were like the Hannibal Lecter style, crashing into each other, feeling like they're about to pop out of my stomach. So
Yes,
all of
yes.
this stuff is happening. I eventually wrap up my presentation and I immediately noticed three things. Number one, everybody in the room was clapping.
Okay.
And number two, I was still alive. And number three, I realized that, man, I just gave and survived my first presentation. And you know what? If I can deliver one presentation, I can deliver two. And then
Okay.
two turned into four, four turned into 10. I eventually graduated from Oregon and went on into corporate America. A little bit of an atypical millennial. I spent 11 years working for the same company, though I held a number of different roles throughout there, but I kept my pulse on speaking. And the thing that Toastmasters helped me realize is that one, this skill of speaking is something that can be learned. It's not
Mhm.
necessarily something that, yes, people are sometimes born, it seems like they're born with a microphone in their hand and they're
That's
more
right.
extroverted. And those things help, but that still doesn't make you a great speaker. You can learn the art of developing an effective opening, a body, a conclusion, hand gesture, vocal variety, eye contact, using visual aids, incorporating humor. And so that's what I started to learn and I started to master. But outside of that, what I really started to realize is that I really enjoy helping other speakers connect with the audience that they're called to serve. And that was really the beginning of Black
Okay.
Speakers Network.
Okay, so that's good. So your desire to so the next question I was going to ask you is, yes, so you are the founder of the Black Speakers Network, and we call it BSN.
Yes,
And
sir.
it seems like you had your own professional career, but then it became a desire to help people with their professional speaking career.
Well, it was the intersection of three things. So
Okay.
one was my own desire to I realized that speaking was something I wanted to continue to do,
Okay.
but I hadn't been introduced to very many career paths that introduced speaking. When I got into corporate America, I realized that there was a department called professional development and that you could be a full-time corporate trainer. And so there are people basically paid to speak, to deliver content training in front of an audience. And I was like, I want to do that.
There
So
you go.
I would stalk the PD people, take them to lunch, try to figure out how to get into the department. So that was one thing. The second thing I realized is that even outside of that, there was a broader professional speaking industry. And so when I was at Morgan, we learned business and we learned marketing. And then I later realized there's an entire landscape of digital marketing, selling products or services, through the internet. And then underneath that, there was an entire landscape of information marketing, which speaking is a part of that. And so
Hmm.
I'm getting introduced to all these new worlds. And so I'm the type of person where I like to learn in community,
Okay.
regardless of what I'm doing. If I'm learning to play keyboard, or if I'm learning a new language or how to swim, like I want to be around other people
Hmm.
that are a little bit ahead of me, some that I can help up, and then people to my left and my right. And that's how I like to learn. And so I started seeking out um, public speaking and presentation skills communities, and I found those in Toastmasters. But when it came to professional speaking, there were only a few organizations out there. And when I connected with those organizations, while they were super impressive, they were just kind of lacking in a few areas. I didn't see the representation
Okay.
um, from a diversity perspective. So I'm like, man, where are the black people?
Right, right, right.
And coming from HBCU, I'm especially concerned because I'm like, okay, I'm not seeing the age representation or the racial representation. So that was one thing. And then the second thing was that it just there everybody kind of had their own like program,
Hmm.
but they were a little cost prohibitive. So it's like, even if I wanted to get started speaking, I don't have $1,000 to join an organization. So all those things, it made me say, okay, I don't see what I want, and I definitely need a community. So I'm gonna just start my own
Hmm.
as I'm building my own professional speaking career. So the genesis of BSN was really the intersection of that experience with Toastmasters, that experience of trying to find a community, and ultimately from a corporate perspective, I did end up. I started in finance. I did get my dream job of being a corporate trainer, so that was great. But then I also ended up doing corporate diversity and inclusion work. And then so it was the intersection of those three areas that really helped me start to shape where BSN could serve in the marketplace.
Tell us, well, you know what I want to ask you, and then before you get into, you know, telling us in greater detail about the organization, I want to ask you a question because you mentioned being in a corporate job, but at some point there was this desire to be an entrepreneur, and you launched out. Tell us about that drive to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. So for me, it never went. I was already in that space when I
Okay.
made the transition from engineering to business, because I'm like, oh wow, you can create, like, as an entrepreneur. The seed was planted in college that you can control your own destiny. You can write your own paycheck. You could, create opportunity. And so that was something that was very attractive to me. I just struggled to find a model. And I actually had a company before BSN. It was called Skills. Nice little acronym. It stood for sharing knowledge and information for lifelong success. And so
Okay.
I started Skills Radio, started interviewing people just like this. I don't know if you remember like Blog Talk Radio, like back
Sure.
in the day. Like I
Uh-huh.
was one of the early people on Blog Talk Radio. Like we were doing seminars and workshops in the basement of hospitals here in Baltimore, free events. I had no idea what I was doing, but it was the beginning of that, because I was like, wow, I just want to help people. I just want to
Hmm.
create stages. And so even when I was in corporate America, I had a little bit of that, and then I stepped away, and eventually, came back. But the drive was really centered in, for me, the
Hmm.
biggest thing is, freedom and flexibility, because I we're only on this planet for a very limited amount of time.
That's
And when
right.
you think about the amount of time that you spend at work, it's a significant amount of time. And so and I learned a lot in my corporate profession, and I owe a lot to that organization. But I do think that my code name for leaving corporate America was called Tuesdays at 10, because I wanted to be able to do what I wanted to do on Tuesday morning at 10 a.m., whether that's a Target run, whether that's sitting by the cafe at Starbucks, whether that's on the beach, or whether that's, doing something like this, or, serving our speakers. And so the thought process was already there. The vehicle was what was missing. And so for me, what I started to realize is that it's not really, because a lot of times entrepreneurs want to replace, they're like, oh, I need to replace my income.
Right.
Um, But that's not really the case. Like, you do need to replace your income, but more importantly, you need to replace the systems that generate your income. And so ultimately, in growing the business, when I started BSN, it was a website, a Twitter page, and a tiny little Facebook group. And so we started to grow from there. And I had to build the business in such a way that we could continue to grow, with me pouring in. So 9 to 5 at work, and then in the evening. But Friday, Saturday, and Sunday,
Mm.
like, that was my jam. Like, Friday evening, I created my very first digital product on a Friday night. I came home 9 o'clock p.m., sat down at my computer. By 2 a.m., I had my very first digital product. It was only a $5 PDF. It was called 51 Online Resources Defining Book Speaking Engagements. And it wasn't
Wow.
even a pretty PDF. It was just
Uh-huh.
like a list of links of places you can possibly find speaking engagements. Put it together. I put it into my email and I sent it out, scheduled it to go out 8 o'clock. Woke up in the morning by 8:05. I had my first sale,
Okay.
$5, right?
Wow.
And now, yeah, that's why I said, I'm like, yo, this worked. And so, like, $5 now, now somebody else would be like, oh, well, that's only $5. But to me, that $5 really represented, much more, because I knew if I can make $5, I can make 50, I can make
Okay.
500, I can make 5,000, 50 million, on and on. So, but the thing that mattered the most, going back to this field of information marketing, is that I took something that was in my head 12 hours ago, transformed it, repackaged it into a product. I never left my house. I didn't, talk to anybody. I'm not on the corner selling anything. Like, I created a page, created a link, created a payment gateway, landing page, and somebody bought it. And so, 8:05, $5, by 8:15, $15, by 8:30, $50, on and on and on. And so that was a key moment that I realized, oh wow, this is something that I can actually do.
Tell us a little bit more about the organization and how you help Black speakers and what
Yeah.
you do for Black speakers and how do you help them in their careers?
Absolutely. So the biggest thing that we had to figure out is, because speakers, when we say the term speaker, it means different things to different people. So some
Okay.
people, speaker means, hey, I want to be speaking on stages 180 times a year. I want to be in front of large groups of people. To some other people, it means what I was doing back in corporate. Like, I want to get training contracts. I want to go in, I want to speak and deliver, and I want to have companies pay me, to facilitate that. So some other people, it may mean, hey, you, I may speak 6 times a year, and then everything else is like delivered through products and services. And so
Okay.
speaking is very, very broad. And so the very first thing we had to do was get organized and really start to get curious around what people were looking for, and how
Hmm.
do they, see themselves as a speaker, and how can we help accelerate their success. And so, we ask a ton of questions when people join our community. We have a free Facebook group, which about 10,000, members right now. And when people join BSN formally, we ask them even more questions. And
Okay.
so, what we created was ultimately a competency model. And so with everything that I do, um, I'm always looking to give people like a simple framework to step into, to be able to really understand, what's happening. And so for us, the 5 areas that we saw repeating over and over again that people needed clarity in, as it relates to growing their speaking business, is what we now call the 5 M's. And
Okay.
so that's helping speakers get clarity on their mission, their message, marketing, how to monetize, and how to manage their speaking business. So it's mission, message, marketing, monetization, and management of their speaking business. And everything that we do, all of our training, all of our resources, all the support is focused on those 5 areas. And there are many, many topics under those areas. But generally speaking, if somebody's coming in, one person may come in and they have no idea who their target audience is. They don't have any product services. They just like, I want to be a speaker. What do I do next? And then
Hmm.
there's other people that are like, okay, I have clarity on some of these things. I kind of know that, I talk to, women health professionals, and I have all of this content, but I'm not really sure how to package it and, monetize it. That gives us an opportunity to say, hey, here's where you start. And so that's really the way we approach it.
Okay.
There's actually a sixth secret M as well. We might be able to talk about that later, but generally that is how we look at things. And so the goal for us is to take the mystery and confusion out of growing and speaking business. And so last year, when we created our first book, Speak Up, it's actually built around those 5 M's. And so that's really the starting point of how we look at things. Um, but I can add on though. So like specifically when you come into BSN, what we're delivering is ongoing training and support.
Okay.
So that's coming in the form of webinars, virtual experiences. We have a new content platform which is called Black Speakers University, preparing to launch this month. So super excited about that. So people can come in and learn and get live instruction on the specific area that they're interested in. In addition to that, we offer like free training on a weekly basis.
Mhm.
They're called speaker development classes that anybody can pop into and learn more about. So that's that. We also provide community. And so we have the BSN Facebook group. We're constantly sharing best practices, resources, wins, celebrating success. When people launch a new book, when they are hosting events, we curate an event calendar. And so constantly sharing that part of our community and helping people, accelerate success and connect with other speakers in their specific niche. And then
Mhm.
the third thing is increasing visibility and getting speaking opportunities. And so for our members, they are actually being added to our speakers directory, in
Okay.
which meeting planners, platform hosts, podcast hosts come to and they're requesting speakers. But we're also sending out speaking opportunity alerts on a weekly basis.
Great. Here's a question for you, because obviously the Black Speakers Network is a successful organization. Because how many members do you have?
So we have a community of over 10,000. And then from a membership perspective, we're at about 500 to 550 members.
So you are an entrepreneur. You're African American man. You launched out into business. I want to ask you the question: who would you say are three people who have been most influential to you?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, that's a really hard to narrow down, but because there's so
Just give
many,
me
but
three.
yeah, so three at the top of my head. One person is Jonathan Pasley. So Jonathan was my first kind of when I was discovering this world of digital marketing and
Okay.
information marketing. I still repeat his mantra that he taught me to this day, because he was walking out of my house one day, and he was, by the way, the person that pushed me to start Skills
Okay.
initially.
Okay.
So I definitely credit him with that. But he also taught me the concept of repackage, repurpose, and repeat. And so from a content perspective, a lot of times as speakers, we are trying to, we're creating so much content and then that's it. That happened in Toastmasters all the time. Like Toastmasters, we would prepare speeches. Like the goal in Toastmasters, do your first 10 speeches. And some speakers will take all this time and energy, like weeks or months, to prepare like their second or third speech, and they would never come back to it again. And like, to me, that's insane, because you have all this content that and people need, but it's like you just put it into a closet. And so instead of that, just thinking about how else can your content live, and
Hmm.
whether that be on different platforms or repurposed for other audiences, or into, if you're writing articles, all of those articles could become a book, and then the
Hmm.
book could become a course, and the course could eventually become like an academy. So thinking about how to repackage. So that's Jonathan. The second person is Craig Valentine. Craig is a Toastmaster himself, but he's the 1999 world champion of public speaking. And he
Okay.
was like my biggest influence, because earlier when I mentioned to you that I was looking around, I'm like, where are the Black speakers?
Uh-huh.
I mean, we've all heard of Les Brown and, Eric Thomas, Lisa Nichols, but I'm like, okay, where are the people? And so Craig was one of the earliest people that I saw. I mean, one, he's tall like me. He
Hmm.
played basketball, Division I for Towson and stuff like that.
Oh.
But he was probably, arguably one of the best platform speakers in the industry, and definitely one of the best speaker trainers out there. And so like, and he's from Maryland, so he's like right
Okay.
down the road from me in Columbia. And so that was Craig. And I there, if you hear me speak, there's a little bit of, there's a lot of Craig Valentine that has influenced my speaking style to this day. Um, and then the third person, I would say like my grandfather, who's no longer with us, but my just from a personal perspective, my grandfather, especially growing up without a father, he was like that next closest like person.
Okay.
And he didn't say a lot, but through his action and through his
Example.
example,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
to see it. So,
Hmm.
somebody actually asked me the other day, like, what did I learn from him? And, he taught me, the value of drinking water. He
Okay.
taught me the value of getting up early and being on time. He's like, if you're
Okay.
late, if you're on time, you're late,
You're late. Yeah, I've heard
if
that.
you're early, you're on time, and if you're late, you're just late. But so that was that. And then also he taught me to drive, like just so many different things. So I spent so much time. And one of the reasons why, anytime I have a public profile, my name is Brian J. Oles. The J stands for James, and that was
Okay.
his first name. So I'm named after him. And he's definitely one of the people that was very influential for me, as Brian Oles, the man today.
Listen, we all need people in our lives that impact us. And I love what you said, that your grandfather didn't say a whole lot, but it was by example that you saw and that you paid attention to, and it has helped you to be the man that you are today. So my next question to you is, okay, so Black Speakers Network clearly has had an impact on the industry. And I want to ask you, how does that make you feel, knowing that what you envision and what you got together in your head? And I'm sure there was a collaborative effort with many people, but you clearly have an impact on the industry, the speaking professional speakers industry. How does that make you feel, the impact that you have?
Yeah, well, I still feel like we're just getting started, but it
Okay.
makes me feel good to see the progression, to know that, there are tens of thousands of people that around the world that we're able to touch. And I'm still
Mhm.
here in Baltimore. I mean, we have members in Nigeria, South Africa, Canada, Australia, every major market in the country. And these are people, they're not just numbers, but they are people that are growing. And so the cumulative impact is something that we're really looking to measure, because my entire thought was, when we first started, if I can help 100 people, and 100 people then go on to impact 1,000, then that's what we have. So it's kind of like a multiplication effect. But to
Okay.
me, it's a good thing. I think, generally speaking, every industry um, needs to get disrupted pretty significantly. We see that with self-driving cars. We see that
Sure.
with every industry. Technology right now is something I pay close attention to, and now more so than ever have has the playing field been leveled to the point where, before, and not even too long ago, even 50 years ago, when you think back to television and our ability to mass market, the
Okay.
keys to the castle were held by a very few number of people. You
Hmm.
could run a television commercial on 3 networks and reach 80% of the country. And
Wow.
now, there are millions. I mean, like, there's digital TV platforms, there's radio, internet radio. There are so many different ways. So the cost and the access we've never been in a place before where, as an individual, Brian O's, Dr. Walker, could turn on a camera, grab a microphone, get some lights, and actually create a platform from scratch and have it rival the reach, if not surpass the reach, of many major platforms. So we're beyond. And I think this is really what BSN stands for in the heart. That's why I'm wearing this. I know people can't see it on podcast, but on YouTube, I'm wearing a shirt right now that says, if you wait until I'm quote unquote successful to work with me, there's going to be a late fee. There's absolutely going to be a late fee, because we are beyond the point of asking for permission.
That's
We're
right.
on the point of waiting for opportunities. Some opportunities will come, but I'm like, everybody's like, how do I get on more stages? How do I find more speaking opportunities? I'm like, yo, create your own opportunity.
There you go.
Create your own platform because you have the tools to do so. And yes, it might take a little bit of time, but once you have it, it's yours. Nobody can take it away. And in addition to that, you're for each additional person that you add to your own community,
Hmm.
your bargaining power goes up. Your ability to, and that's what conferences and meeting plans are looking for. Like nobody's looking for an unknown voice. People are looking for thought leaders. They don't want to
Right.
hire speakers. They want to hire experts. And so I think for us, that's been the biggest thing in terms of disrupting the industry or what we're beginning to do. It's moving away from this concept of, oh, how do I get on? How do I speak at Essence? Like, that's cool. I mean, go speak at Essence, but I want you to become the next that's Essence. So I'm just using
Yeah.
nobody from Essence come at me. I'm not, there's nothing wrong with Essence, but what I'm saying is, from the perspective of creating our own platforms, I feel like we have the power to do that now.
We are still in the middle of COVID-19. And, what can you share with others who are in the speaking business and to help them to thrive during, this crisis? I know you just talk about the playing field is even, and so you can kind of create, so just talk a little bit more about that, especially in the context of COVID-19 and how can people still advance their public speaking careers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's interesting is that, so when COVID first happened, so I haven't been on a plane since February, I guess.
Okay.
when this all first happened, I was like, okay, how do I help people? Because when the lockdown started and it's like, okay, events are being canceled left and right. Nobody knows what's going to happen. The obvious question is, what happens to the speaking industry?
Hmm.
And so for me, the answer is it evolves. And
Okay.
as a speaker, what happens? You evolve. Now, the cool part is BSN, going back to those 5 M's,
Hmm.
the fourth M is monetize. So we've always have preached um, along the lines of that repurpose, repeat thing from Jonathan. We've always preached multiple streams of income. And it's not, again, a lot of people come into the industry like with this perception that you only get like paid speaking opportunities. Like you show up, somebody puts a check in your pocket, like that's how you get paid. And
Uh-huh.
that still happens. But there are two ways to get paid as a speaker. You have an event planner or a client pay you to come speak to
Hmm.
their audience, or the audience could pay you directly. And there's a combination in between. So for us, COVID is just a opportunity to better focus and to bring to light some of the other ways that we should be monetizing our speaking business anyway. For BSN, there are 20 different ways that we teach to monetize your speaking business. And the vast majority of them have nothing to do with physically showing up to an address, jumping on a plane, or
Hmm.
doing anything like that.
Hmm.
But honestly, I mean, you got books, you have ebooks, you have digital downloads. Like I said, my first thing, $5 MP3. Like most people right now are maximum 48 hours away from generating revenue. And this isn't even, forget about speaking for a moment. The amount of people, for everybody listening to this, I don't care if you were, I was just interviewed by Dr. Brad a couple days ago. I don't care if you're a lawyer. I don't care if you're a landscape architect, veterinarian, whatever. We are in the age of content marketing. We
Hmm.
are in the age of helping people solve problems
Hmm.
with the knowledge that we have. And so doesn't matter. Like you have the ability to package that into something that people want, as long as you are solving a problem that is that people are looking for, and then that problem whatever that value is in the mind to your audience is that's what it's worth. So you got books, you got ebooks, you got digital downloads, you have online courses, you have memberships, affiliate programs, sponsorships, coaching, consulting, seminars, workshops, like licensing, the
Mhm.
list goes on. And so COVID doesn't really matter in the conversation, because as a speaker, when you raise your hand, you're like, yes, I want to be a speaker. What you're basically saying is, I have an audience that I'm called to serve. And even in a traditional setting, when you show up to speak to a live audience, it's impossible to teach that audience everything that you know within the course of that engagement.
Okay.
You're sharing normally like 1 to 2 concepts and ideas, and
Hmm.
maybe like a call to action. And so you need a way to continue to serve that audience long after you walk off the stage. And so that's where those digital products, those services, books, courses, all that comes into pass. So we have speakers identify their path to profit. And yes, speaking is a part of that,
Okay.
but there's much more to consider.
Great. As we come to a close, um, what I want you to do is to kind of leave us with some kind of inspirational message for the audience. It's something that you could share with us just to inspire people, whether it's just being a public speaker, being an entrepreneur. Just share something that's of inspirational message for us today.
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest thing for me, so I mentioned to you, I worked 11 years for the same company, and
Hmm.
during that time, there were some hard days where I was just like, man, I wasn't sure if I could do it, or I knew that in order to exit, I had to get some things together. Like, and so all the experts were like, hey, you need, um, you should have 3 to 6 months expenses in the bank, lower your debt as much as possible. So for me, that was stuff like, paying off my car. We got a little bit of student loans, all that good stuff. Um, and really just making sure that your income again is at a place where you can cover your expenses. And
Hmm.
so I left April 12th of 2019, and on that day, at that moment, I didn't have any of that. Like, I definitely didn't have 3 to 6 months. I had a bunch of paid time off because I was working
Uh-huh.
hard. So I cashed that in. We did have healthy income. We had month over month revenue. So that was good, but it wasn't, as much as I was making at the time. From a revenue perspective, it was, but when it comes to like paying myself, it wasn't quite enough. And so, um, but I was fine. Like I've never starved.
Okay.
I've figured it out. And so, and the business now is way beyond what it was then. So my closing message would be, whatever you're doing, life is super short. My entire goal when I wake up in the morning every day is kind of focused around 3 mantras. It's like,
Okay.
have fun, make money, make an impact, and it's with heavy emphasis on to make an impact, because right now people are hurting, people are in pain, and the things that come super easy to you
Hmm.
are probably what somebody else on the other side of town, on the other side of the country, or even on the other side of the world, like somebody's praying for the information that your process, your formula, your recipe, like to help them move to the next step in their life or in their business, or to avoid, something bad from happening. And so, my entire thing is, don't let perfection get in the way of progress. Sometimes, I believe in, taking action and, consistently moving forward, but, you know, don't wait for things to be perfect. Don't worry about, having a perfect product, writing a perfect book, creating a perfect presentation, having a perfect sales pitch, becoming a perfect speaker. Like, forget all that, because there are people right now that are in your space that
Hmm.
know half as much as you do, that are
Wow.
making 4 times as much. And so the world is waiting for you. And that's why our tagline is speak up because your audience awaits, because they absolutely are.
Absolutely. And that's a great message. Where can our listeners connect with you online? just give us your social media information.
Yeah, there's a bunch. I mean, I'm Brian Oles on everything, Black Speakers Network on everything. But the number one thing I would recommend for folks that are listening right now, not connected to Black Speakers Network, is just to join the BSN Facebook community. Joining the BSN Facebook community, like I said, you get access to free training. You'll be able to see what other speakers in your industry are doing. We always have like question of the day and things you can like learn. You drop a video introduction in there and get some feedback. But you also will get if you leave your email when you join, you will get a free copy of our book, an e-copy of our book,
E-copy.
Speak Up, the ultimate guide to dominate the speaking industry. And this isn't like a fluff book. It's not like something we just put out there. It's 35 chapters broken across those 5 M's. And so if you're thinking about, man, how do I price myself as a speaker? How do I create a webinar? What do I need, to actually go live and stuff like that? Like, each chapter is prescriptive based on where you are and what you need in your speaking business. And so Les Brown wrote the foreword, and Dr. George Frazier and Les Brown wrote the foreword and afterword. So we got the 2 titans of our industry that are there, plus 35 other authors sharing their perspective. So I'm giving you that for free, but just go to Black Speakers Network, the group on Facebook, or you can go to bit.ly/BSNFB for Facebook and join and just hang out. And I would love to connect. And if you have any questions, I'd love to help.
And I have my copy. It's a great
Hey,
book.
look at that earmark, student.
Yep.
Lifelong
So
student.
yes, so it's outstanding. So please get your copy online. But I want to say to Brian, I am truly appreciative of you being on today. You really inspired us. You've encouraged us. Letting us know that whatever you set out to do, if it's your purpose, if it's your goal, your journey, you can do it. All you have to do is make up your mind. And when it comes to speaking up, or if you have something to say, as the book says, speak up, because somebody's waiting to hear your voice. And as I say to all of my guests who come on, you have gone beyond the culture, and we thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Keep up the great work, Dr. Walker. I appreciate you.
All right, Brian, you take care.